Hundreds and hundreds of sneakers, hundreds of consoles. The greed of scalpers and botters are unfathomable. Why do you have to buy so many? Isn't a few good enough to make a few $100s here and there? What are you even going to do with all these hundreds of thousands of dollars that you make from selling these items? I'm mainly going to go over the sentiments of most sneakerheads, but these concepts can easily be applied to any item that sells for a profit. From what I personally observed, most reasonable people don't actually have an issue with resellers and the hustle that comes with it. They start to have an issue when resellers essentially get too much. They don't have a problem if someone's just trying to flip a few sneakers, but they do have a problem when resellers buy so many to the point where there's basically nothing left for anyone else. Why are some botters too greedy? It isn't as simple as more shoes and more money. To an extent, it's true. At the end of the day, the more you're able to acquire generally means the more that you can make. But the key detail that is often overlooked are the costs. And no, I'm not talking about the retail price for each item. I'm talking about bot costs. These consist of the bots themselves, whether it be an initial fee, a recurring fee, but oftentimes both, proxies, Gmails, servers, cook groups, accounts, captcha services, and other subscriptions. And as always, I will include time. If you're botting, most of these require a monthly fee, so you can spend as much as you want or as little as you want. That's really the beauty of botting. And in theory, the more you spend, the better your results will be in terms of number of checkouts. But the number of checkouts won't always have a correlation with your actual profit for a given month. Here's an example. Let's assign some values to these expenses. This is around how much a beginner to an intermediate botter would spend on a setup. Note that I put a dollar value next to time at $15 an hour because this is the amount of time you could be working a real job instead of setting up bots and learning how to do all of this. And I chose 15 because that's the minimum wage in New York City. Since you're spending this much for the month, then you need to at least make this much in inventory profit just for you to break even. And as you scale up your setup, you're expected to get more checkouts. But would those extra checkouts cover for the added costs? Keep in mind, botting doesn't guarantee you pairs. I get a lot of messages saying, oh, can you teach me how to bot? I only want 3 pairs every single release. No, that is not at all how it works. Nothing is guaranteed in the botting world. And that's the reason why every botter needs to maximize the amount of profitable items they acquire within a given month. Because first of all, if you're paying $1,200 a month in botting expenses as an example, you might as well put that to work and make the most out of that investment. Second of all, you just never know when you're going to come across a dry spell. Absolutely anything can happen. Websites can change, bots can change. The bot that you paid $7,000 for that is super duper consistent and is just destroying every single release can become obsolete tomorrow. That's how quick things can go in the botting scene. Or it's also possible that you do absolutely everything correctly, but you just get very, very unlucky. You can be on top of the world, hitting every single release 1 month, and then the next 3 months, just absolutely nothing. Or maybe even longer than 3 months, who knows? So if you're paying about $1,200 a month and you do very poorly for 3 months, basically need to make back $3,600 in inventory profits alone, just to break even. So if there's a release that can yield you $50 in profit per sneaker, then you need to successfully check out at least 72 pairs just to make your money back. It is highly unlikely for anyone to get that many pairs in a single release. And if you want to include the 4th month, the month that you started to hit those pairs, well, you would actually have to get 96 pairs just to break even. And this doesn't even include the time investment that you made for setting up your bots or processing orders. And like I said, that's why if you're a botter, you have to go for as many profitable items as possible. You need to get as many checkouts as possible. Ultimately, your performance as a botter is going to be nearly impossible to predict. You'll never know when you're gonna hit it big. Maybe you hit it big for an entire year straight and you are absolutely just on top of the world, but just never know when that dry spell is going to happen, or if you'll even be able to recover from it. And this level of risk is even scarier for the big time botters. I'm talking about the botters who hit hundreds of pairs seemingly every single release. Yeah, these checkout numbers are on another level, but these guys routinely run over 100 bots at the same time and spends more than $10,000 a month on their operating costs. And that's just a conservative estimate. I got this number from AYCDJ, who is probably one of the most well-known big botters in the scene, and he said this is about how much he spends every month on ISP proxies. Keep in mind, this is most likely just a fraction of his total monthly expense. If we scale up the numbers we had earlier in proportion to the increased proxy expenses, this is how much he will be spending every month. But that's just speculation. Only the big botters know what their own true monthly cost is. Can you imagine someone like this having a bad month? By the ways, which has happened before. No one is bulletproof. Now, what about a poor 2 to 3 months? I can't even fathom what it's like to be losing that much money. That's how much some people make in a whole year. With them spending this amount of money, I do want them to succeed. I am rooting for them because these are huge risks that I personally do not have the balls to attempt. I know throughout this video, I'm making it seem like no one should be into botting because of how easy it is to lose money. Ultimately, it's just like any other business. You put money into the business without any guarantee of you getting anything back. You're gonna have some good days, you're gonna have some bad days, some good months, some bad months, and there's going to be a lot of things outside of your control that will either positively or negatively affect your business. With enough learning, risk-taking, and perseverance, however, botting is still a very fun side hustle that can be extremely lucrative. You just have to understand the risks that come with it, which I have made several videos about, which still apply to this day. So check those out if you want to get into botting before jumping into it. So to conclude, why are botters so greedy? Number one, it's because if they're paying a monthly fee, they want to make sure they get the most out of their resources. Number two, to minimize their risk, they gotta make as much profit as possible because they just never know when you're going to run into a dry spell or how long it will last for. Or number three, to make their money back from previous failed releases. The way I see it, greed really isn't a factor in why botters try to get as much as possible. I'm not going to pretend that making money isn't a factor as to why resellers strive for the most amount of checkouts, but other than that, it's really just a smart thing to do. Now, are there any exceptions to this in the reselling world? Absolutely. If store backdoors around 90% of the stock, then they are probably being a bit too greedy.